Oh, geez.
Needless to say, the first month I lost like 3 grand. The
Okay.
second month lost like 4,000. And
Okay.
I was like, listen, this isn't going so well.
Yeah.
I gave access with a code through some company that I don't even know exists that would log into my computer
Oh, geez.
and go in Outlook in my computer and send messages from there and move things around. Like, I'm moving to a new town. Nobody knows me. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a social media account from zero. You guys are going to watch. The main goal for a lot of the clients was like, how do we create a secondary source of income based on something that we love
Yeah.
that is similar to what we do, but not exactly what we do.
Thank you for joining us again, Founders Forum viewers. Today we've got a very special guest, Mark Baratto. He's the owner of Backyards of the Sea and Backyards of Key West. He's creating some amazing pieces of art from his studio, and we're very excited to have him on and hear more about his business journey. So thank you so much, Mark, for joining us today.
You got it. I'm excited to shed any light and help answer as many questions as possible.
Let's do it.
I remember when we first talked to you, you just had like a sense of business acumen,
Yeah.
at least in the tone. And we're like, wow, this person really knows what he's doing too. Because when we were first, most of the clients that we closed for, our agency, they don't really ask us the questions that you did.
Yeah.
You already knew like the metrics, ROAS and things like that. So we really wanted to pick your brain about that. But can you kind of give us like the quick cliff notes of like, where you started your entrepreneurial journey to where you are today, and maybe we can like inject some questions along the way.
Yeah, I think I would say I'm a purebred entrepreneur from the start. I've worked for a number of different companies, so it's not like I don't mind working for other people at all. I actually, when you're an entrepreneur, it's very lonely because you don't have a big group of people that you can socialize with or bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
But on the same tone, you can work a lot harder and you can kind of get caught up in your own work ethic and overdoing yourself because you don't have those regulations around you. So my journey really started, instead of boring everyone and going way back to the beginning, my journey started when, and this is a good story, a friend of mine, he sold his apartment when we were living in Miami Beach. And he asked if he could move in with me because he used to be a full-time trader in the stock market and wanted to get back into doing it and take the money from the sale of his condo and do that for trading. So he moved into my apartment. I had a 3-bedroom at the time, moved in, and I was doing a sales job at the time, working for an eyewear company doing sales. And I'd come home from work and it's the first week of him trading, and I would be like, well, how did you do? Now, just to frame this up, this guy was the kind of person who would under talk his performances, right? He was he wasn't boisterous and loud about his accomplishments. So I came home on Monday and I'm like, how'd you do? And he's like, I made 3 grand today. I'm like, all right. And then the next day I'm like, how'd you do? And it's like 2,500. And the next day, like 4,000. And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So then the last day, which was Friday, I'm like, how'd you do? He's like, not so good. I'm like, oh, good. See, and he gave it all back. He's like, I did 500 and then just called it quits by noon and went to the pool. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah.
So
oh my gosh.
I said to him, have you ever trained anybody in this? And he's like, I've never trained anybody, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm like, all right. So at the time I owned my condo outright.
Oh, okay.
Took out a line of credit for 50 grand on the apartment.
Wow.
He's like, you're going to lose 10%. Think of that as your cost of education.
Right.
And we started trading.
Oh,
needless to say, the first month I lost like 3 grand. The second month lost like 4,000.
Okay.
And I was like, listen, this isn't going so well, we're way past that 10%. He's like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. We're getting the rhythm and the cadence together.
Yeah.
By the 3rd month, I was break even.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, nice.
And then by the 4th month, I made 30 grand and then never looked back.
Wow, I did not know you started trading.
Yeah, so we did that from We did that from 2004 to 2009 full time.
Wow.
Oh my God.
And sorry if you don't mind me asking, because I got
No.
into day trading a little bit. First of all, how old were you at this time? And when you say full time, do you mean during open market hours or just a few hours a day? Like, what do you mean by full time?
Market open to market close.
Wow, that's a long time to trade every day.
Yeah, we had a particular style. And to answer your other question, it was 2009. You guys could do the math. I'm 50 now, so I had no kids. I had no relationship, so it was a lot easier. You know?
Yeah.
Actually, 2009, I was with my wife, so we were together, but I wasn't married yet.
Yeah.
So it was a riskier time. You could be riskier. So I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
What a fascinating time too, because that's right during the real estate bubble.
Yes, it was. It was actually, yeah, it was 2000. Well, it was 2004 to 2009. 2009, we started a broker dealer, so we started our own company.
Oh, really?
We took all the education and everything that we were learning ourselves and moved that into starting a firm, because he moved to New York, I moved to Orlando, I started a family, he started the brokerage business very small, and then I moved up to New York, and then we took it from there. But from a trading aspect, he developed this particular style, which was called capitulation trading. And when he first started trading, this was in the late 90s. He had like a T1 internet connection at his house because there was no, Wi-Fi, and the internet connection was still dodgy back then. He would trend trade. For people that don't know, trend trading is as something's going up, you follow that, and as it's going down, you follow it down.
Yeah.
So the problem with that is it comes with a lot of emotional baggage attached to it, just like all trading does. So what he did is he saw that he was losing every time he would jump in on a trend, and he's like, I'm going to do the opposite of that. And he did that, and it became a successful methodology. So capitulation trading was when a stock is starting to plummet. Like, let's say that you have 1,000 shares of $100 stock, which is $100,000 investment.
Right.
And let's say that stock starts cratering and going lower and lower. And this is in the day, intraday. This is before the market closes. So it goes from 100 to 98 to 97 to 95, all within a 10-minute period. There's a percentage of people that will do, and I promise everyone, listen, this is not going to be all stock trading. It's just good because this can relate to all business, because it's about emotion and how to control them.
Yeah.
So there's about 10% of people that will get out of a losing trade immediately. The another 10% of people that will take that to zero, like it'll have to go bankrupt before they sell it. Then there's an 80% of the people that there's a specific point where a pain threshold comes in and they will exit because of fear. Same thing going up. Stocks going up, up, up. 80% will go, I'm missing out, I gotta jump in. So we would do the opposite. So as everyone's going out, we would be buying into it and averaging in as we would be buying it. Our average time within a trade, if we were in a trade more than 8 minutes, it was going wrong.
8 minutes?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of,
we were in and out immediately. We would be buying like 500 shares, 1,000 shares, 1,500 shares, and start exiting, piecing out immediately, because it would go parabolic. It would, like, think of a rubber band stretching, going down. And then as people are panicking, we're accumulating because the stock is moving on momentum of fear.
Jeez.
So we did that particular style for closing in on 5 years.
That sounds exhausting, especially because if you're doing intraday trading at intervals of like 10 minutes for like 6 hours every day during the week, that's a lot of mental bandwidth and emotional.
Well, the emotional, because if we'll go back and forth a little bit, when you fast forward, one of the roles I had at the broker dealer is I was in charge of education. So I had an educational course that was called
Oh.
insider trading, emotional mastery in the market. So like a play on words, like inside trading.
Yeah.
Because we had rules and you have to follow those rules. And I would say 99% of everyone out there just can't. They just can't. They don't have the mental capacity to follow rules. We would spend 90% of our day, we call it sitting on your hands, seeing something that a trade that wasn't quite there yet, but having the emotional fortitude to not do it.
Exactly.
Wow. A lot of self-control.
I actually have two transition questions. One, because we started basically when you got into entrepreneurial. So what were you doing before that? Like, were you in the 9 to 5? And then to transition out of trading, what happened after that, I guess, success in the brokerage and the education space?
So was 9 to 5 beforehand, traded full time, opened the broker dealer, sold that in 2013. My clients, who were a lot of friends of mine within the broker dealer, saw what we were doing from a operational standpoint and from a marketing standpoint. And because I was in charge of a lot of the marketing and sales, came to me and said, hey, listen, can you do what you did for the firm for us? And that's when I started my marketing and consulting company and took on a variety of clients because of that.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were actually in marketing.
Yeah, you had your thing.
Yeah, I was. We had Google AdWords. We were probably paying 25, 30 cents a click for brokerage terms like stock trading, equities. So we were real early in Google. I mean, there was no Facebook business at all. Like our firm, I had like a personal account and I had an account for the firm, and like first name of the user was Broad and the last name was Street, like, way before business pages even happened.
Oh my God.
So it was taking a lot of the mentality that we had informing and using marketing within that company.
Yeah.
That the minute like Facebook advertising started, we were first with that. The minute Instagram started, we were first with that. So it was working with a lot of those clients and helping them get the same kind of results we were getting.
Yeah.
Because, we were getting hundreds of leads every single day for our firm. Hundreds of them.
Maybe we'll get into this when we talk about Backwards of the Sea and Backwards of Key West, but I assume at some point in this journey, especially after trading and exiting, while you're going through that, I'm sure in your mind there was like a number where you're like, okay, I'll be financially free after this. And I assume that you may have achieved that or not. But if you have, like, how did you go from the process of like, okay, I'm kind of good now and I don't have to like, grind too much? Like, how do you fill your time? Or what are your thoughts about filling your time after you reach that point of success?
Yeah, I never hit the number that I needed to hit. It got close to certain numbers, but never exceeded that numbers. One of the reasons we got out of the broker dealer is because you have to deal with the SEC and regulation on a constant basis.
Yeah.
And they were changing the rules of the game constantly.
Yeah.
And legal fees were astronomical all the time.
Yeah.
So I would say I did very well, but not enough to sustain a life where I would retire. Now, for me, there is no retirement. It's a matter of finding something I love and doing that all the time. I'm a big proponent of Tim Ferriss and the 4-hour work week, less about working 4 hours and more about doing things that you love so that that's your living retirement all the time.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like I live in Key West. I have an art gallery. I deal with happy people all the time.
Yeah.
You can't get any better than that.
No, definitely
Is
not.
that where the transition came? Basically after the exit, you're like, okay, like, let me try this art thing, interact with, happier people. Like, how did Key West come about?
So the brokerage firm was 2013. We didn't move here to 2019. So a variety of my clients, I would think of, I had the marketing consulting company, and then a client would come in and say, hey, I'm doing this healthcare tech startup. Can you get more involved? We'll give you equity. And then it would be like still having my clients on the side, but working in a deeper role within those separate, companies as a consultant.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of that. It was a lot of in and out of different companies as a consultant.
Yeah.
And then we thought of Key West because my family and I always we can't, it's like, they say 7-year itch in a marriage. It's like 5-year itch in a location for us.
Yeah.
So when we had our broker dealer, we were in New York part of the year, and then we were in Miami part of the year, because we were remote. We were like super early when it came to remote. Like a lot of my employees were like, Mark, you guys were so remote. It was ridiculous before people were doing remote stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I had an assistant who was overseas I gave access with a code through some company that I don't even know exists, that would log into my computer and go in Outlook in my computer and send messages from there and move things around like calendar cards and stuff like that, because there was no other way to do it. It was like crazy how the remote system was.
I think it's kind of relatable because obviously, we have a marketing agency. So something that we continuously struggle with, or maybe always want to improve on, is like how to get more clients. And I want to ask, kind of in the very beginning, when you started it, how were you getting your clients being new to the space, if you were new to the space?
I got clients all from references. So they were all because we were successful with the broker dealer, and I built a relationship with those clients. And some of them were like, oh, they were trading as a hobby, but were successful in something else. So they would say, hey, I'm super successful. I have an accounting firm that's, in Phoenix, and we've got 50 offices, and we need help with advertising.
That's awesome.
What do we do? So I would just dive in and try to figure it out. I also learned a lot from listening to podcasts constantly. And being abreast of everything that changes, because when it comes to marketing, especially digital technology, it's like on a monthly basis, something new is coming. Things are changing, right now with the TikTokification of everything. It's like, that's a whole new wave of how everything's changing.
Absolutely.
Even from advertising on Meta, it's completely changing. They want us to post on Reels all the time. They want to get that market share, because if TikTok goes away, it's all going to go to Instagram.
Back to them.
We did notice, like, some of our more successful clients right now, we asked them how they started, and most of them say referrals. Like, it's just referrals. Like, one we're working with now, they said their first million or something, they was just all word of mouth and referrals. And it's only now that they're introducing marketing. So we feel like referrals is like the holy grail, I guess, of acquisition.
And kind of like to extend by that, like community, I think, like what you said earlier about sometimes entrepreneurship can be really lonely, like in terms of like what you're doing with your own business at any given moment. Is this the right choice? Is it not the right choice? Should we be going this way, that way? So like, I'm just curious then, as you were transitioning between the brokerage to the marketing consultancy to where you are now, like, how has community impacted that journey? And were you finding different communities along the way?
I wasn't, and I should have. It was a difficult situation, because when we were living in Miami Beach, I was going to coffee shops and working out of those coffee shops. That's why, like, my back is killing me now, because I was sitting on hard chairs constantly for many years. So my community were like other entrepreneurs trying to start some other journey in the same coffee shop I was working at. So in that way, it would have been better to maybe be in a WeWork or community working place and have a little bit more contact like that. But it's like, my community were all virtual, online people that didn't know me, like people that I listened to on podcasts or audiobooks that I was constantly digesting. So those were like my mentors and my teachers that I got. There wasn't a lot of this happening.
Interesting. So I'm curious then, how did that, because I've looked through your podcast actually, and it looks like you talk to a lot of different people within the Key West community, other artists, that kind of thing. So how did that kind of begin, and how do you think that's impacted maybe your business or your personal life in terms of getting in touch with those kind of folks for your podcast?
Good question. So what happened was, I had my clients. We were getting ready to move to Key West. I was telling about doing podcasts. I was telling about the proper way to communicate on social media, telling them that, like, are you adding value to the people that are listening? Like, for example, it's ironic. I was having this conversation with my son, who's 16, and he was saying, like, you know, dad, because he wants to do like a YouTube show or streaming video
Oh,
games or something like
yeah.
that. So he's like, Dad, I feel like if people are going to leave comments, bad or good, it's a hard thing to deal with.
Mm.
You know, or what happens if somebody shows like an old picture of you or something like that? You know, this is what younger people would think about.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, first of all, if people are showing younger pictures of you, then they're holding onto a picture of you when you were 10, and that's weird as it is. But
Yeah.
you know, the thing I
Mm.
said to him was, you know, if you went in, if you're adding value to your audience in the stuff that you're posting, then you can go into your, like, say it's video and it's on YouTube. You can go into your channel and you can say, listen, I don't like the comments that I'm getting here. I don't like what's going on here. I'm unplugging for a month.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be sharing anything. If you're doing it right, that's hurting them, not you.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones craving your content all the time because you're adding value.
Yeah.
I go, so if you're adding a lot of value and you're like a television show for them,
Yeah.
then anyone that makes a negative comment, your audience, your community will pile on and help you.
Boom.
Good point.
Yes.
And that leads me to what the question that you asked was. I was telling all of my people, look, add value when you are posting on social media. Don't just go in there and go, here's my iPhone, buy it. You know, go in there and add as much value as possible. And no one wanted to listen. They didn't want to do podcasting. They didn't see the ROI in doing all these different things. So I said to them, look, I'm moving to a new town. Nobody knows me. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a social media account from zero. You guys are going to watch. I'm going to, the main goal for a lot of the clients was like, how do we create a secondary source of income based on something that we love?
Yeah.
That is similar to what we do, but not exactly what we do.
Okay.
So my goal was we were going to do a coffee table book called Backyards of Key West, where it was like showcasing the houses and stuff of Key West.
Yeah.
And do a podcast and interview different locals. And one thing led to another. It grew so much, and the art came from that, that I fired all those clients and now do this full time. So the journey was teaching these people, teaching all of the different people who are my clients what to do that would work, and then using myself as a test subject for that.
Yeah.
Something that we always try to think about, because as you know, as a owner of several businesses, you get kind of lost in the business sometimes and forget to work on the business or growth. And so Kayla and I always talk about how we're not quite sure the exact model today is what we're going to do forever. So what's your advice on how do we know when to pivot, if any? And when we do pivot, is it a function of did we build up enough savings, or should we just drop this one and move to the next one? Or how long should we stick with this one? That's kind of always in the back of my mind about long-term thinking, right? It's when do we go to the next move, and what do we do with the current move before we move to the next move?
Give me an example.
Yeah. So right now we're doing marketing, right? And then maybe in the future, we watch a lot of Shark Tank right now, right? And say we want to come up with a food product or a clothing line, right? Or let's say we want to build a software, right? We know we want to do that sometime in the future, whether it's 1 or 5 years or 10 years from now. So how do you know when we're transitioning away from the marketing agency to building a product, building a software, starting a brokerage? That transition, I think, is a little fuzzy to me on how to execute that transition.
You should be thinking about those things all the time because it's a hobby that you love.
Yeah.
If it's, and I'm not saying this is you, but there's a lot of people I want to be a realtor, or I want to do crypto, or, I want to do AI or VR. And it's they're chasing the money instead of chasing what they love. Now, of course, it's wise to pick stuff in a genre that you could be successful at, right? But using myself as an example, nobody talks about the art world as being successful. Right. It's called starving artists for a reason. But I was able to take my business sense and use that in the gallery. And I'm always my wife, she's I don't want to come and sit in the gallery because it's boring, because there's not a lot of people that come in all the time. right? If it was constant people and constant ringing people up, then it's exciting. But there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm always working on the business.
Yeah.
I'm always working on different things. I'm always thinking like, okay, if I have 6 different sizes of each piece of art, what can I do to increase the income, or do like I was telling the other clients, how do I add additional things? Well, maybe I offer coasters. Maybe we do matte prints in gallery that are $40. Maybe I partner with a framing company that can offer like floater frames like this.
Yeah.
That's $100 more,
Awesome.
but my cost is not as much. Maybe I can add metal prints. Maybe I can create some original pieces of art and sell them. So it's constantly working on increasing that business. To help what you were saying is, if you like cooking, then start doing a cooking show.
Right.
Sure.
Because you like it. That's the thing. If you like doing it, it just comes easy to do it. Then if you're like, I love cooking, I got into this cooking niche, I'm making pizzas, then maybe you'll develop a device or something that you could then sell to like a Shark Tank or something like that.
So follow-up question, actually, because we have this debate almost every week, because every Saturday we have like this mastermind between the two of us. And we always reflect on like, how are we doing and are we going in the right direction? We're constantly struggling between like focusing on the current business, because there's one school of thought that says focus on one thing so you can get better and progress quicker in that thing. Yeah. Versus like, oh, like say we love cooking, let's go start a cooking channel on YouTube on the side. We were like, does that take away attention and bandwidth from like our actual business today? And trying to find that balance of like doing the business stuff and maybe the next thing. Like, how do you balance that bandwidth?
Well, think of it like this. You two don't spend 24 hours a day together living the same life in one brain. You both do separate things and have separate lives together.
Yeah.
So you're doing different things and you're having a successful relationship.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You know, you can say, okay, I'm only going to work on our marketing company and that's it. But if you're scratching this itch of cooking and love doing that, that's going to make you happier, which is going to drive more toward the other thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see that. Maybe a subtle way of that is we have a YouTube channel, as you know, a YouTube channel, a personal YouTube channel. Yeah. And kind of like on the weekends, we'll go out to eat and we'll vlog the restaurant, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it is a side thing, but it's something we do kind of like that we enjoy, that's outside of the business, but kind of related to the business, if that makes sense.
Exactly. It's exactly related to the business, because if you do it and you love doing it, you can get a lot of followers. You cannot get a lot of followers. It's just something you're practicing and something you're loving and something that you then can talk to potential clients and say, look, this is a good thing to start. This is a good way to educate an audience. This is maybe eventually you'll intertwine all of your marketing into one account for yourself personally. So it's like, hey, we have an agency and we travel the world and we do cooking reviews and we do this and this is our brand. One thing.
Yeah.
If it was like you got 12 Instagram accounts and this is the business one and this is you personally and this is that starts getting exhausting.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, that's really, I think that's a great perspective, because there's, I think, a lot of like gurus, I'll say, that are out there that'll just like be very black and white about their advice about business. So I think that's a more holistic approach, especially because most people, I'm sure, when you start a business, there's a lot of uncertainty with like, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right path? That kind of thing. I'm actually curious too, like, it sounds like this might be just a function of like your personality and being able to start just like, like execute essentially. But when you were first starting, did you have any sort of like, I don't know, doubts maybe or reservations before you went into it? Besides
everyone. Yeah, constantly.
Yeah.
And it gets harder as you have more responsibility.
Yeah.
If it was either one of you single in this room, it would be easier than the two of you together because you have more responsibility. You drop a kid into the equation, now you have even more responsibility.
Yeah.
Like the advice of the advice that gurus and parents and adults will give kids who are graduating college is the absolute worst advice, which is go get a secure job and do this, which is that's the time you should be taking the most amount of risk possible.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because what are you going to do? You're going to downsize, drive a Toyota, and then go sleep on a friend's couch. Big deal.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm 50. I can't take my family, and we're going to go sleep on a friend's couch.
Yeah,
You know, it's just.
That was part of our thought process when we started about 18 months ago. We both had 9-to-5 jobs, and we're like, wait a minute, we don't have like a mortgage, we don't have kids, we're not tied down to anything. So like, this is the time. And if we fail in 2 or 3 years, then we'll just go back to 9-to-5 job. Of course we don't fail, but
yeah.
So I have a couple other follow-up pieces of advice for that.
Please.
Yeah, definitely.
Gary Vaynerchuk, right? The all-powerful Gary Vaynerchuk always says, have your main dish and a couple of sides. Right? So like if your main dish is the marketing company, you can have a couple of side businesses that if they fail or not are not going to hurt the overall business.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing. The other thing that I would say is that a lot of people that say just do one thing, you can't put a person in a box like that, because if you're the kind of person that thrives off doing a variety of things all the time, then that's just going to make you a better, well-rounded person. If you're like, I must do one, complete it, then do the other and complete it, then having 10 things may not be good for you. But it's also being self-aware to understand. Some people give advice because they're afraid to fail and they don't want to do that. So they think if I stick to the one thing I'm good at and the one thing I like, then these other 4 things that I have the possibility of failing, I don't have to worry about that.
Maybe the advice came, there's this one influencer that I really love following. His name is Alex Hormozi. He's basically, are you familiar with him?
Yeah, everyone's familiar with it.
Okay, cool. His whole journey is always like, at one point I was like CEO and founder of like 5 companies, and it wasn't until I just focused on one company where that company like grew, right? And so I think maybe that's the disconnect for me, is maybe the advice of focusing on one thing applies to like big ventures and not necessarily like small side projects, side dishes like you referred to. So maybe his advice is more like, don't be a CEO of 5 companies, right? Maybe that's what he's referring to, like about one at a time.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes people, like, that's really good advice that he's giving too, if you're talking about people that are chasing money. Because what happens is they'll start one thing and they don't have patience, and they'll go, I'm not getting it all right now. Let me move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah.
Business is like fitness. But when you do fitness, you don't go in the gym and just do like leg day. Then you got huge legs and no upper body. You have to do like everything, right? So think of like body parts as a variety of different businesses you can have. They're still in the realm of fitness.
Yeah.
But it also is something that like my son, going back to him, I told him, he just started working out. He's been working out now 4 months. I said, listen, fitness is the best thing you can do. Forget about your health for you, for life. Because here's what going to the gym is. So you're telling me I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to put myself in pain every single day. There's no one to celebrate it with me. I don't want to ever do it. The next day it hurts even more than it did the day I was doing it, and I'm not going to see results right away.
Yeah.
It may take years for results. That's what you're telling me I need to do that?
Yeah.
That's a good example of how business is one as well.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I'm actually glad we're getting your perspective on this, because like I feel like I'm getting slightly more clarity in our this debate about these things. So thank you for educating us on that.
No, and of course, hopefully someone's getting out there is getting a tidbit of info from this.
I think so. There's a lot of wisdom in this. Just kind of one last thing before we ask any more kind of wrap-up questions. I'm curious, since it seems like you're more situated within Backyards of the Sea and Backyards of Key West, what is kind of the thing that you're looking forward to the most in the next let's just say the rest of the year, because we're about halfway through. Is there anything like big coming up? Is there any kind of moves that you're excited about making? That kind of thing?
I'm always, and I think we talked about this the first time we spoke too, I need my online business to do more than my in-store business.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because in store living in Key West, there's hurricanes, there are fires, there's COVID, there's, when you have a brick and mortar retail location, you are handcuffed to other people and other decisions, whether it be local or whether it be federal. When you're doing stuff online, you have the ability to pick up and go at any time. And that also comes from, that's my safety as well. I used to live a life of being on the go and not be tied down to anything. So it's rewarding because I'm seeing people all day and they're all happy. And it's scary because you're now attached to the economy, you're attached to many other things. Whereas like a marketing and advertising world, yes, it does get affected by the economy, but there's always people trying to sell stuff.
It's
just a matter of you changing maybe your pricing based on how the economy is going. But it's like, that's the time to double down on your marketing and spending the money on marketing. Because when the economy is hitting the toilet, most big companies pull back, and that's the first thing they cut. They cut people, they cut marketing. And that's the time where you could go ahead and get ahead of all of your competition, because you're doubling down on the business instead of doubling down on a new Mercedes, which is what a lot of people do. So like, maybe go out to eat a little bit less, or start utilizing your YouTube show to maybe get some free meals.
Exactly.
And doing all of that and spending a little bit less on things when the economy starts softening. And putting that money aside for when the iron is hot.
Love it.
In the last 5 or 10 minutes, I kind of want to go to some regular questions we ask, because I feel like you're talking about Gary V, Tim Ferriss, something that I wish I did much earlier. Ironically, I got through school and my career without doing much reading. But when we started entrepreneurship about a year and a half ago, we basically read a lot now, every day. And I've, have a list of my favorite books now. I know this is sometimes a hard question to answer, but what is your favorite book of all time?
My go-to book is Influence by Robert Cialdini.
I've never heard of this one, so we'll check this out. I mean, other than the title, what is it about?
Robert Cialdini, and that's spelled like Cialdini. It's psychology. I love human psychology. I'm addicted to learning about people. So Robert Cialdini has these 6 principles of persuasion. He's I think he's still practicing, but he's a practicing psychologist in Arizona. And he's got Influence and a couple other books. And the 6 principles of persuasion are, as human beings, we all have these DNA traits, like reptilian brains, that all follow one of these 6 principles. That's why my advertising company was called Launch 6, because it was the principles of Robert Cialdini. Like, everyone likes saying social proof. That's him. He's the one that came up with that.
Interesting.
So that is a must read, a constant update. He gives real life examples. Like, a quick little story that he'll talk about is, he was working with this client, and they were a jeweler, and they were in the Bahamas or something like that. And this woman, he was telling the story because this was a client of his later, but what she did was, she was not selling this like topaz jewelry or whatever. So she went and said to her, like, she went into the store and put a little note and said, sell everything half off, and then left for vacation. When came back, of course, everything was sold. But when she looked at her numbers, the numbers were crazy. The person didn't read it right and thought it said increased by 5 times, not decreased by 50%. So because there was this perceived value on everything sold for that much more, that much quicker.
Crazy.
So Influence, Robert Cialdini, these 6 principles of persuasion, they're my Bible on everything that I do.
I'm gonna add that to the list.
We need to read that then.
Do you have any final questions?
Honestly, I feel like I've gotten so much wisdom
Yeah.
out of the last like 40 minutes or so. Is this really cool?
The gray hairs and the beard are there for a reason.
Well, you're definitely, we appreciate you sharing that wisdom.
You know, it's a good interview when 40 minutes goes by and it doesn't feel like
No, this is like honestly one of the fastest, and I think something that's really cool, and that the reason why we'd like to do this is because like, when we're doing our like normal weekly meetings, or people are kind of in the weeds of their lives, that it's hard to have these kinds of conversations and build this kind of connection with people. And I don't think we've ever been able to really like sit down and talk about your background, your business, this kind of wisdom. So I don't know, at least for me, this has been an extremely valuable.
Oh, thank you.
We'll
make sure to put your information in the description of the video.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
for anyone out there listening, if you have any questions for Mark, put them in the comments and we'll reach out to Mark for you.
Yes.
And maybe he'll drop us an answer on your comment.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I've been more than happy to answer any question from anybody at any time.
Yeah, we would love, obviously we've gotten a lot of value from this. I'm sure there are a lot of other people that are hearing some of the things that you're saying and have questions. Is there anything else too, before we kind of wrap things up, that you'd like to promote, say, ask before we wrap up?
Yeah, if you're in Key West, come to our gallery at the Shops in Mallory Square. Come say hi. You don't need to buy anything. If you look over there, if you're listening, you're not seeing this, but if you're looking, I have a bar.
Free drinks.
So if you come in, mention the show, we'll have a drink together. I don't sell it because I don't have a liquor license, but we'll have a drink together.
There you go. Good way to go about it.
Really appreciate your time and more importantly, your wisdom, Mark.
Absolutely.
So thanks for coming on, and maybe we'll catch you on a future episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys. All right.
Thank you.